On today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we got to talk about three defensive linemen that absolutely stole day one of the NFL Scouting Combine.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day, and thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. On this bonus edition of Locked On Eagles, I am going to recap day one of the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. I just got back from Lucas Oil Stadium. The defensive linemen, defensive tackles, and edge rushers, including inside linebackers as well, all hit the field today at the Colts Stadium to do the 40-yard dash, to do all the other on-field workouts. I got three key winners that I want to talk about from an Eagles perspective. So obviously Sonny Styles from Ohio State at linebacker was the talk of the town. I mean, an inside linebacker that runs a 4.47, that's 6'5", that has one of the best vertical jumps at the position in NFL history, that clinched a top 5 pick in this upcoming NFL draft, is the talk of Indianapolis right now. I mean, every bar that you go to down by Lucas Oil Stadium, it's, did you see what Sonny Styles did? Like if you didn't check it out today, highly recommend go look at his workout from today. But from an Eagles perspective, there are three defensive linemen, two edge rushers, and one defensive tackle that I specifically want to talk about that I think could be options for the Eagles on day two, whether it's in the second round or with the 54th overall pick or one of their two third-round picks in this year's draft that could potentially replace Jalen Phillips if he leaves in free agency, that could potentially, in the long term, replace Moro Ojomo, who's a free agent after the 2026 season. So I have two edge rushers and two defensive tackles that I want to talk about. And the defensive tackle that stole the show from the start of practice was Penn State interior pass rusher Zane Durant, who I have taken before in our Mock Draft Monday mock drafts for the Philadelphia Eagles. This defensive tackle class is very nose tackle heavy. I don't believe there are even really like 5 to 7 legitimate pass rushing interior defensive tackles that are worth a first or second round pick. I think there's probably, gun to my head, like 3 to 4 right now. It's very nose tackle heavy, which is good for a lot of NFL teams, but for the Eagles, they have Jordan Davis, they have Jalen Carter. They want to add another fastball like Moro Ojomo and Milton Williams, a pass rushing specialist, to that group long term. I do believe Zane Durant is one of those guys. Like on day one, I think it's, Caleb Banks from Florida. I think it's Peter Woods from Clemson. In the second, or I think more likely the third round, I think Zane Durant is my number one option. Well, today, he moved better than any interior lineman out there, and I don't believe it's even particularly close. Zane Durant ran the fastest 40-yard dash today, 4 defensive tackles at a 4.75. He also ran the fastest 10-yard split, which to me, for interior defensive linemen, I think is very important because that shows their initial get-off off the line of scrimmage. It shows that explosive first step, which when you put on the tape of Zane Durant at Penn State, which I highly recommend, he is a fun watch, you can see that. So to see that he had the fastest 10-yard split today is just confirmation of what you saw on tape. His 10-yard split was 1.66, which was first among all interior linemen today. His vertical jump at 33.50 was third. His broad jump at 9 and 4 inches, fifth among all interior linemen. Zane Durant was unbelievable. That 4.76 40-yard dash was really impressive. And again, I don't think he's a 54th overall kind of candidate in round 2, but for that first pick in round 3, maybe even trade up a little bit back into the end of round 2 or at the top of the third round. Durant's somebody I really like to add. He could be this year what Moro Ojomo was to you in year 4. Or I should say in 2024, which was a 4th defensive tackle that was still used heavily in that rotation with Milton Williams, with Jalen Carter. Honestly, he was used more than Jordan Davis that year because he was a really good pass rusher. Zane Durant could be that for you now. And then after next year, I think like Ojomo did stepping into the shoes of Milton Williams, I think Zane Durant at some point could step into the shoes of Moro Ojomo when Ojomo inevitably takes on a $20+ million a year contract with another team in the open market. So for me, Zane Durant was like the number one guy that wowed me from the start of practice. But coming up next, I do want to talk about two edge rushers specifically that stole the show that I think are prime candidates to potentially replace Jalen Phillips this offseason. But first, today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are sponsored by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. If I was trying to hire for the Locked On Eagles podcast, I would go to Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and the one position you got to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, that's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs step in. They help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with an Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Make sure you show your support for the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Today's show is also presented by HomeChef. Look, I'm a busy man. I do this podcast, which is my job. I have another full-time job. I'm in a relationship. I have friends and family that I can see on the regular. I'm in rec league, sporting leagues every weekend. Eating food, it's kind of just a figure it out as you go kind of thing, Monday through Sunday, Sunday through Sunday. That's where HomeChef comes in. They make simplifying your routine, especially in the food department, really easy. They take the stress out of cooking it by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated number one by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. Over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. For a limited time, HomeChef is offering my listeners at Locked On Eagles 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. So go to homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. And guys, shout out to our sponsor today, America's number one sports book. It is FanDuel. FanDuel, look, if you are looking for a trip to the NBA Finals, if you have never attended, but you are a diehard NBA fan, well, FanDuel can get you and a loved one, a friend, family member, a loved one, a trip. You can win one to the NBA Finals and make that dream a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. And now, not only can you pick your cash to win, it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Right, we are wrapping up this bonus edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, recapping day one of the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. Again, like I said, Zane Durant, I thought, stole the show to start the workouts for the interior defensive linemen. And while I think edge is a bigger need right now for the Eagles, so is right tackle. I think maybe wide receiver if A.J. Brown was traded. Tight end is certainly a more immediate need. Maybe even if Reed Blankenship leaves in free agency, I think safety would trump that. But Moro Ojomo is going to be a free agent after this year, and I think having that third pass rushing specialist to complement Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis is really important. I just think having pass rushers on the interior that can consistently get to the quarterback, having one star at that spot is a priority for me when it comes to like building blocks for a championship contender. But having multiple guys on the interior, like the Eagles in 2024 had Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, Moro Ojomo, and Jordan Davis. Like, that's ridiculous. I want to have 3 to 4 guys on the interior that can get to the quarterback. So if Ojomo does leave for $20+ million a year, I really like the idea of Zane Durant on day 2. But I think edge rusher is a better bet for the Eagles to use. If they go with one defensive lineman with those first 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, I think it's a safer bet that it's edge over tackle. And to me today, 2 guys that I like for that second or third round pick were really impressive. Let's start with Malachi Lawrence from UCF. This kid is really fast. His bend is really impressive. He is an explosive player off the line of scrimmage. You can really see that. I think if you add him to the room with Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt, that is some crazy explosiveness on the outside to complement what you have on the interior. You saw that on the field today. Malachi Lawrence from UCF ran a 4.53. He ran a 10-yard split of, I think it was 1.58. Let me just confirm that. It was the number one, the fastest 10-yard split of any edge rusher. So again, that shows you that really explosive first step. Yeah, he tied, who did he tie here? Howell from Texas A&M. They both were at 1.58, their 10-yard split. Lawrence also was second in the vertical jump today and the broad jump. You look at those like bend drills, he was really smooth on the field today. And there are some other guys that I probably preferred on day 2 over Lawrence, but after today, and then going back and watching the film of Lawrence before this show, he's becoming a my guy for me on day 2. He was one of the bigger winners today of all of the defensive linemen. And then another one, if we are going to stick with that size, that length, that hand-in-the-dirt kind of pass rusher that I keep talking about the Eagles should add to complement Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt in the scenario that Jalen Phillips does leave in free agency this year, somebody that fits that bill that was great today was another Penn State Nittany Lion. We are, for you Nittany Lion fans out there. Penn State, the defensive line looked great. Danny Dennis Sutton ran a 4.64 40-yard dash. He looked, every time he was out there, every drill, even the drills at the end, which I think are pointless where they're catching the football, they were having these defensive linemen run fade patterns at one point. I'm like, what are we doing here? But Danny Dennis Sutton, who I knew had the size and length and, speed to power ability, but to see the athleticism for a guy that big to be able to move out there like he did was kind of a shock to me. And I think that it's going to make me go back to the film and see if he should be higher on my board than I have him right now. If an edge rusher, if they hit for the 3-cone drill, if they hit 7 seconds or better, that's excellent. This class today, only 2 guys hit that mark. George Gums Jr. from Florida had a 7-second flat 3-cone drill. Danny Dennis Sutton had the best one here at 6.9. And this guy, he's 6'6", 256 pounds, 33.5-inch arms, 10-inch hands. Just unbelievable. A 10-11 broad jump, 6.9 3-cone, like I said, 39.5 vertical, had a 1.63 10-yard split on top of the 4.63 40-yard dash. He's somebody that I could see the Eagles really liking. Between him, it's like, I think he's in that tier with Joshua Josephs from Tennessee. I think he's in there with maybe Zion Young from Missouri. Maybe Zion Young's a little bit higher right now, but Sutton's in there with the Kerryon Crawford group out of Auburn, LT Overton, Abe Jackus from Illinois. Those are the kind of guys that I think he compares to. And again, with that style of player he is, and he's not like just this sloppy, bigger defensive end that has no lateral mobility, has no speed and athleticism. I was very surprised how well he moved in the open field today. So are any of them first-round options for the Eagles? No. But the Eagles have been very good at nailing these second and third round picks lately. And if they want to do it again up front, Zane Durant and Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State and then Malachi Lawrence from UCF are all really intriguing options. I've taken all of them in Mock Draft Monday episodes so far this offseason. Today, they confirmed to me that I think in that like second and third tier of interior or just in general defensive line pass rushers, they are good options for the Eagles. Are any of them like number one go-to guys at the next level? I wouldn't say so. I think they're solid rotational pieces with upside, but I think that's what the Eagles need right now in the defensive line because they have their top four for the future. It's, we'll see about Jalen Phillips, but even if he's gone, you've got Nolan and Jalix on the edge. You've got Carter and Davis on the interior. You've got another year of Moro Ojomo, replenishing that pool with a couple more guys like Lawrence, Durant, or Dennis Sutton. I'm kind of in on that. So I thought it was a good day for a lot of the defensive linemen. In fact, this was the fastest average 40-yard dash time among all defensive linemen in a class. The fastest average time since 2003. I told you guys on our 30-minute show today that edge rusher is really deep this year and has a lot of variety of style. Pick your poison of what kind of guy you want. And they tested out of the gym today. Obviously, Sonny Styles, Everell Reese from Ohio State. The two Buckeyes today stole the show at linebacker. But I came away with this saying, I think if the Eagles wait on day two, they can get a couple good pass rushers in this class. Even if they want on day one, like Keldrick Falk from Auburn. He doesn't test amazingly, but for a guy that big at 20 years old, I thought he moved pretty well out there today. So TJ Parker from Clemson, I thought had a solid day too. There's a lot of options, and I think the Eagles will come away with at least one pass rusher in the first 3 rounds. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this bonus edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening. Until tomorrow, thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Let's go, Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.